In the heart of the forgotten village of Njabvu, hidden beneath the tangled canopies of ancient baobab trees, there stood a hut no one dared approach. Not even the brave or the foolish. Children were warned. Elders remained silent. And those who asked too many questions never asked again. But one day, when the wind changed direction and the moon turned blood-red, a girl heard something no one else had. Name. Whispered from within the forbidden hut. Long ago, in the deep countryside of eastern Malawi, where myths moved faster than wind and secrets buried deeper than roots, lay the village of Njabvu, a place forgotten by maps but etched in stories told by firelight. At the edge of the village, where no cattle grazed and no child dared to play, stood a small, crooked hut, cloaked in vines and shadow. The villagers called it Nyamba Yamizumu, the hut of spirits. It was said that inside dwelled the unspeaking ones, souls that refused to rest. No one had entered it in over 30 years, except once. But no one spoke of Malia, the last one who had stepped beyond its crumbling door. Tawina was not like the others. Barefoot and curious-eyed, she often sat under the old mboa tree, asking questions the elders wished she'd leave buried. She was 14, with tight coiled hair always tied in a red cloth, a gift from her mother before she disappeared. Tawina's father, stern and silent, never answered when she asked about her mother. His only rule: do not go near the hut, no matter what you see, no matter what you hear. But that night, as the village lay under a cloak of silence and the moon hung too low in the sky, Tawina awoke to a whisper, sound soft as breath. Tawina! She sat up, heart thudding. The wind had stilled. The dogs weren't barking. Not even the crickets dared to sing. Again it came. Tawina, come. It was her name, but no voice she recognized. Faint, distant, echoing. And it came from the direction of Nyamba Yamizumu. The next day, Tawina asked the elders again. This time, old Nkotsa, the blind storyteller who sat near the granary, spoke. There are things, child, that do not sleep even when we stop believing in them. He leaned close, his white eyes wide as if staring into another world. That hut. It remembers. It calls the blood of those who were once tied to it. Your mother, he paused, was the last to be summoned. Tawina froze. What do you mean? My mother went missing during a flood. The old man chuckled, dry as leaves in drought. Floods can't whisper names at night. That evening, Tawina stood at the edge of the open field where the hut lay. The wind whispered in circles, carrying with it a smell: old herbs, wet soil, and ash. The villagers avoided her gaze as she walked closer. Children clutched their mothers. Goats bleated nervously. Even the chief's dog, usually fearless, turned and ran. But Tawina kept walking. Tawina! She heard it again, clearer now, from inside the hut, as if it had lips. Standing before the hut, Tawina saw the door wasn't shut, but covered in cobwebs and old cloth strips marked with red ochre and charcoal runes. The wind pulled at the fabric gently, like fingers beckoning her in. Her hand trembled as she reached for it, just as her fingers brushed the cloth. Tawina! She spun. It was Auntie Melita, her father's sister. Her face pale, eyes wild. Are you mad? You want to join your mother? She's calling me, Tawina said. She wants me to know. Melita grabbed her arm. The spirits lie, child. They wear voices like masks. But Tawina pulled away. Then why was my name whispered? Why now? Melita's silence said more than words. That night, Tawina dreamt. She was walking through the forest. The trees bent low to whisper secrets. She saw her mother, her face hidden in shadow, her voice humming an old lullaby. When the wind speaks, listen with your bones, not your ears. She reached out, but her mother crumbled into dust, blown toward the old hut. Tawina woke with a scream. Her blanket was on the floor. Her red headwrap was gone. At dawn, it lay folded on the doorstep of the hut. The next morning, she met with Nkotsa again. He handed her a carved kalimba, old and worn. This belonged to your mother. She played it the day she vanished. The spirits may remember its tune. Tawina ran her fingers across the metal tines. A sharp wind burst through the trees as the sound rose. The village quieted. "Go to the hut," the old man said. "But don't go alone. Take memory with you." That evening, as twilight dipped the village in orange and black, Tawina returned to the hut. This time no one stopped her. As she neared, she saw her red headwrap pinned to the door with a thorn. And beneath it, a name written in white chalk. Tawina Malia Tembo. Her full name. Her mother's name. A legacy hidden in plain sight. Her knees weakened, but she stepped forward. "I am not afraid." She reached for the cloth. Pull. It slid off like old skin, revealing the entrance. Dark, cold, waiting. The smell was immediate. Bitter herbs, dried blood, burnt wood. Inside, the air shimmered with silence. Dust floated like spirits paused in motion. There were symbols carved into the floor, old Ngoni patterns twisted into something darker. And in the middle a mat, bowl, cracked mirror. And then, "Tawina," from within the hut. But it wasn't a voice this time. It was a chorus, and it came from the mirror. Tawina approached it slowly. Her reflection stared back, then blinked out of sync. Suddenly it changed. Her mother stood there, hollow-eyed, hands pressed to the glass. "Daughter, I never left." Tawina fell to her knees. "Where are you? What happened?" The mirror rippled like water. "They bound me here. For what I knew. For what I tried to stop." "Who?" Tawina whispered. "The ones who feed on silence. They live in secrets. In huts like this." She heard footsteps behind her. Tawina turned. No one. When she looked back, the mirror was shattered. And the bowl in the center of the hut was now full of blood. Tawina stood frozen. The dim glow of twilight barely reached inside the hut, but the bowl at the center glistened unnaturally red. It hadn't been there before. Not like that. She hadn't brought anything with her. Her throat tightened. "Daughter!" The voice returned, not from behind her, not from the mirror now shattered, but from beneath the floor. The ground trembled softly, like something breathing beneath the earth. Suddenly the door slammed shut. Tawina ran to it. Pull. It didn't budge. From behind her came a new sound, a rhythmic tapping. Blick, blick, blick. Turning slowly, Tawina saw a bone stick, tapping against the bowl. But no one held it. The blood inside began to swirl and slowly, a shape formed on its surface. A face, hollow-eyed, lips stitched closed. Tawina backed into the door, trembling. "You were named by the cursed one," the face whispered. "You carry her mark." "My mother," Tawina whispered. "No, her mother." The blood boiled. Suddenly the door creaked open, and a figure rushed in. Auntie Melita. She grabbed Tawina roughly and pulled her out. "You weren't supposed to go alone." The villagers were gathered outside, staring in silence. No one said a word. Not even Kotze. The chief, arms crossed, whispered. "The girl has heard the call. It begins again." Tawina looked around. "What is going on?" Melita didn't answer. She took her by the wrist and led her home. That night, Tawina demanded the truth. Melita sat by the fire, face worn. "Your grandmother, Alina Tembo, was not a healer. She was a binder. One who could trap spirits. In mirrors. In bowls. In names." Tawina's breath caught. She tried to silence something evil, but she failed. "And it took her. Then your mother. What did it take?" Melita stared into the flames. "The ones who feed on silence." Many moons ago, before Njabvu was a village, there was only forest and shadow. Travelers would pass through and vanish. The Ngoni warriors believed the woods were cursed. But then came Alina Tembo, a woman from far west, with knowledge no one understood. She carried mirrors etched in silver, bones carved with glyphs, and words that could stop winds mid-breath. She found the spirits, beings that thrived in places where secrets were buried, where no one spoke. They whispered into people's minds, made them forget who they were. made them disappear inside themselves. To stop them, Alina built the binding hut, Nyamba Yamizumu. With bones and salt and blood, she trapped their essence. But the spirits weren't destroyed, only silenced. And silence does not die. Wait. Tawina listened in shock. So why me? Melita showed her something from her pouch, an old cloth darkened with age. It had the same symbol carved on the bowl in the hut, a twisted spiral within a circle, like an eye turning inward. This was stitched on your swaddling blanket. The mark of inheritance. The curse follows the named bloodline. Tawina clutched her chest. So when I heard my name, it wasn't just calling me. It was claiming me. Melita nodded. But you're the first in 3 generations to hear it, and survive the night. That means something's changed. That night, Tawina dreamt again. But this time she was inside the hut. The bowl of blood sat in her hands, cold and pulsing. Around her the walls breathed. The shadows whispered. Then she saw her mother again, this time bound in roots, her mouth sewn shut with red thread. Her mother struggled to speak, and finally pulled the threads loose with bleeding fingers. They feed on what we don't say. They grow stronger when we stay silent. Tell them, her mother rasped. Tell the truth. Tawina awoke, screaming. The next day she went to the central square. The villagers watched as she climbed the old storyteller's platform. Nkotsa, silent, nodded to her. I have a story, Tawina declared. And it's about the truth you were all told to forget. She began to tell it. About Alina Tembo, about the silent ones, about the mirror in the bowl. The villagers murmured, uncomfortable. An old woman cried. A man covered his ears. Then a howl echoed from the forest, high-pitched and inhuman. The wind shifted. The spirits had heard her. That night, the village dogs barked all at once. The flames in hearths dimmed despite fresh wood. A crack echoed through the land, loud and sharp. Nkotsa burst into Melita's hut. The seal is breaking. The hut's protections are unraveling. Tawina stood. Then we have to finish what my grandmother started. Melita stared at her. To do that, you must walk where even she feared to go. The inner chamber. Tawina nodded. I will. But I'm not going alone. Under the ghostly moonlight, Tawina, Melita, and Nkotsa stood before the hut. This time, Tawina carried her mother's kalimba, a gourd of river salt, and a shard of the broken mirror. They stepped inside. The air felt thicker than water. At the center, the bowl now overflowed. Blood ran in lines along the grooves in the floor, forming a map, a path deeper into the earth. Melita traced the symbols. There's a chamber beneath. They began to chant in the old tongue. Words Alina had once whispered. The floor split open. Stairway led down. Torches flared with blue fire as they descended into a stone cavern, circular, carved with faces screaming in silence. In the center stood a large stone altar, cracked and bleeding red mist. On it lay a mask, made of bark and bone, eyes hollow, lips sealed shut. The maw of the silent ones, Nkotsa whispered. Suddenly the mask lifted on its own, floated, and then it spoke without opening. You dare unseal what was buried. The room shook. You, child of the cursed blood, think truth will save you. Tawina stepped forward, heart thundering. No. But silence never has. She began to play the kalimba. Soft notes at first, then stronger, faster. The tones echoed in unnatural ways, as if the hut itself were an instrument, as if her mother's voice was within the melody. The mask screamed, a soundless mental explosion that made them stagger. Cracks formed in the altar. The stone faces cried black tears. The air turned warm, too warm. A beam of light pierced from the bowl above, into the chamber. The mask shattered. The red mist vanished. And Tawina collapsed. When she awoke, it was morning. The hut was gone, reduced to ashes and bone dust. The villagers gathered silently. Nkotsa placed a hand on her shoulder. You did what none of us had the courage to. Melita wept, but Tawina felt something stirring inside her. A whisper. One last echo. The silence is never truly gone. Only waiting. After the hut burned down, strange things began to happen in Jobvu. Children woke from nightmares they couldn't speak of. Dogs refused to go near the river. And Tawina began to change. She would wake in the middle of the night humming tunes she didn't remember learning. She started seeing things. Flickers in mirrors, faces in water. Melita watched her closely. The maw is broken, yes, Melita murmured one day. But the blood carries memory. And what you saw you back. In her sleep, Tawina spoke languages no one understood. Old tongues, older than the village, older than the ancestors. Melita consulted the ancestral griot, a blind woman named Ngoza, who hadn't spoken in a decade. But when she heard Tawina's voice, Ngoza wept and said one word. Zangati. What does it mean? Tawina asked. It's not a word, Melita replied. It's a place. Zangati wasn't marked on any map. But the elders remembered the name with a kind of dread. A place deep beyond the known forest, where the stones speak and air doesn't echo. Tawina knew. If answers existed, they'd be there. Katsa tried to stop her. Whatever you broke, it left something inside you. Then I have to find out what it is, she said. Before it finds me first. With a satchel of charms, a carved walking stick, and her mother's kalimba tied to her hip, Tawina entered the forest. 3 crows followed her. One always cawed after she spoke, as if mimicking her. The other 2 simply watched. She passed through places no villager dared go. An old riverbed where frogs sang like people, and a grove of trees that bled milky sap when touched. At dusk on the 3rd day, she found it. A circle of stone monoliths, each one carved with faces with no mouths. As Tawina stepped into the stone circle, the air dropped cold. The wind stopped. Her breath fogged. She placed her hand on the largest stone. Pulsed. We remember you, said a voice from all sides. Tawina turned. No one. Then from the ground roots slithered up, not like vines but like fingers. They curled around her ankles gently. Then the stones began to hum, a deep tone that vibrated in her bones. Your blood sings the old name. Your voice stirs the sealed ones. You are the speaker unmade. Tawina tried to speak, but found she couldn't. Her lips moved but no sound came out. The trees swayed, though there was no wind. Then a shadow rose from the center of the circle. Not a figure, not exactly. More like a tear in the air. A mouth opened in the void, stitched like the one in her dream. It spoke inside her mind. You gave us voice. Now we teach you silence. Her ears rang. Suddenly the kalimba on her hip began to vibrate, on its own. Tawina grabbed it and struck a single note. Bling. The circle split with light. The roots recoiled. The stones cracked. And the mouth shrieked. A soundless shriek that turned blood to ice. Tawina stumbled back and ran from the circle, the forest twisting behind her. As she left, the 3 crows flew overhead, screaming as if in warning. It's in you now. It's in you now. It's in you now. Back in the village, Tawina collapsed at the gate. She awoke in Melita's hut 2 days later. But something had changed. Her eyes reflected faint symbols in the firelight. Her voice carried a second layer, like someone else speaking just behind her words. Even Kotsa bowed when she entered. You carry Zangati's echo now, he whispered. You are no longer just yourself. The elders called a gathering. One by one they asked her to speak. And when she did, each word she spoke forced truth from the listener's heart. A liar fell to his knees and confessed theft. A woman screamed and admitted burying her sister's bones behind the granary. They all feared her. She is the mirror walker reborn, someone muttered. The last of the bone binders, another said. Or the beginning of the end, said Nkotsa. But Tawina refused to be a vessel. I am not a tool of the silent ones. I am not a curse. I am a girl who heard her name and answered. That night, she lit a fire at the ruins of the hut. Alone, she played her kalimba and began to speak stories aloud, telling them to the wind, to the spirits, to the trees. If silence gave them power, then truth will be my weapon. The flames danced higher. A face appeared in the smoke. It smiled and whispered, "Then you must go deeper." It began subtly. Birds flying in perfect circles above the river. Goats refusing to eat. Babies laughing in the middle of the night. At nothing. Then came the words. Villagers began hearing their names whispered from mirrors, water basins, and even in the crackle of fire. But the worst was when children began repeating phrases they couldn't possibly understand. The fire remembers the first lie. She walks between two breaths. Name her, and you bind her. Nkotsa looked at Tawina with growing fear. You woke something that teaches now. Something that doesn't forget. One night, without warning, a crimson flame split the heavens. A single bolt of red lightning struck the center of the village square, leaving behind a scorched spiral in the earth. From its center rose a mark, a glowing rune none could translate. Tawina knew it instinctively. It's a name. Whose name? Asked Melita. Mine. But not yet spoken. Dagger, the gathering of the voiceless. Nkotsa gathered the remaining elders. She is no longer one of us, muttered one. She brings truth, but it splits us apart, said another. And yet, she alone can end this, Nkotsa declared. Or doom us. They decided to exile her by dawn. But Tawina had already gone. She left under cover of night, guided by voices only she could hear, whispering from the wind and the bones of trees. Tawina walked for 3 nights. No sleep, no food, only the pulse in her veins, growing louder, matching the rhythm of her heartbeat. She came to a plateau known in legend as Kuzimu's Shelf, said to be the lip of the world, where ancient spirits once debated which creatures should be given voices. At the edge stood a monolith of black volcanic stone, etched with symbols only she could now read. Here lies the first bound. To name her is to reawaken the sky's wound. The voice inside her stirred. It told her of a name erased by fear, a name so old it was never allowed to be said aloud, only sung beneath the breath of dying griots. She closed her eyes and let the name form. Asa Tenga. The ground trembled. The sky flickered, not with lightning but with symbols made of flame. She spoke it again. Asa Tenga. And the plateau split open. From the chasm rose a figure wrapped in smoke and bone, its face a shifting mirror of every ancestor she never knew. You call the unbound. Do you understand the price? Tawina didn't answer. She only sang the lullaby her mother taught her. The being flinched. Smoke peeled back. Beneath the mask of ancestors was a girl's face, not unlike her own. Cried. So. You are the one who broke the silence. I didn't mean to, Tawina whispered. None ever do. Then the entity touched her forehead. Suddenly, Tawina saw. Time before language. A woman chained beneath a sacred tree. Elders whispering her name into rocks so it could never be said again. The burning of the first storyteller. The truth hit her like cold iron. She was descended from the original voice-bearers, those who could speak and change the world by naming it. But generations ago, the village feared that power. They silenced her bloodline, buried their names, built huts to imprison echoes of their voices. The hut she had opened wasn't cursed, it was a prison, and she had set them free. As night deepened, the spirits of the other unnamed began to rise. Figures made of smoke, fire, tears, and dust. Each one whispered their true names through Tawina. She could barely stand under the weight of so many stories. The sky above turned black, not with clouds, but with symbols etched into the stars. And then, the voice inside her gave her a choice. Speak our names and return power to your line. Or silence us again. And protect your world. Tawina stood at the edge of the world. Behind her, the village, still cracking under truths too sharp to hold. Before her, a legion of souls begging to be named. And in her hand the kalimba. She struck a final note. Ing. Then she began to speak. Name. Then another. And another. Each name lit the sky like lightning. Each syllable cracked open the earth. And as she spoke, her voice changed, becoming layered, ageless, sacred. At sunrise all was silent. The plateau was empty. The runes in the village faded. The children slept peacefully. And Tawina was gone. In her place they found a single burnt feather, a cracked kalimba, and a stone engraved with words. Silence was never safety. Truth does not whisper, it waits. 17 years later, in the neighboring village of Mombwe, a young girl named Nayli wakes from a strange dream. In it she stands inside a burning hut. The fire doesn't touch her. In the center, a woman made of smoke and stars whispers, "Nayli, don't let them bury us again." She wakes shaking. The name Tawina pulses in her chest like a second heartbeat, though she's never heard it before. Nayli lives with her grandmother, Amai Senga, a respected weaver and herbalist. One day, while collecting dyes from the forest, Nayli finds a cracked kalimba hidden inside a tree knot. When she strikes a note, ding, the sound doesn't echo. It reverberates in her blood. That night the dreams return. More names. Faces that blur and vanish. One phrase repeats. The silence must end. Again. In a dried-up water basin, Nayli sees her reflection change. The face is hers, but older, wiser, and crying. Then it whispers, "You are the key, not the door." Terrified, she tells Amai Senga. The old woman turns pale. "You've heard the voice," she mutters. Then, "It's not just a dream." "No, child. It is a calling." She tells her of Njabvu, of a girl named Tawina, of the hut, and the day the stars wept fire. That was the last time someone dared to speak the truth out loud. Nayli decides she must go to Njabvu, now called the Ash Village, abandoned, overgrown, cursed in whispered stories. The trees have retaken the paths. But the moment Nayli steps into the forgotten square, the kalimba hums. She's drawn to the remains of the spiral, still scorched into the earth. There, in a half-collapsed hut, she finds a single name etched in bone. Tawina. As she speaks it aloud, the wind changes. And behind her someone says, "I knew you'd come." It is Mkotsa, the last living elder of Njabvu. Now blind, he survives as a keeper of forgotten tales. "She told me you'd come. 17 years to the day." He guides Nayli to the tree of memory, ancient, scarred with ancestral carvings. There he reveals a hidden story. The voice was not a curse. It was a defense. The unnamed were guardians, protectors of the world's truth. But power frightened people more than lies. So they silenced them, one by one. He places a carved stone in Nayli's hand. "You are the last echo, but your voice could become the new beginning." At midnight, Nayli lights a fire in the center of Njabvu. She plays the kalimba. Each note is a door. Each chord is a name. And the souls of the unnamed rise from the soil, water, wind. "Do you give us breath again?" they ask. Nayli nods. "I name you not in fear, but in memory." She chants their names. The air glows. Pulse races through the earth. Far away, across villages, people wake, knowing their true names for the first time. Names long forgotten. Names erased by fear. Suddenly the sky tears open. The voice, older than the stars, descends. This time it is not angry. It is weary. "Child, we have waited long." "I am not her," Nayli says. "No, but you are more." The voice places a burning sigil on her forehead. "You are now the keeper of truth. Not to command but to remind." Nayli is lifted into the air. The spirits swirl around her, not as ghosts but as light. One by one they fade, not into nothing but into the world itself. Truth is reborn. By morning, Nayli is alone in the ashes. But something is different. Birds sing ancient songs. Children in nearby villages wake humming the kalimba tune. And in Mombwe, her grandmother weeps. Not in sorrow, but in relief. She did it, Amai Senga whispers. She gave voice to the silenced. Years pass. Nayli becomes known as the waker of names. She travels village to village, not as a prophet, but as a storyteller. And every tale she tells ends the same way. Names are not just for calling, they are for remembering. She never mentions Tawina again. But sometimes, as she plucks her kalimba under the stars, a second melody plays along with hers, from somewhere in the wind. And if you listen closely, you'll hear a whisper. Silence is not peace. Speak, and live.